last time on Dragon Ball Z.
Good evening. I'm Byron Pitts in New York. We have breaking news this evening. New York Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted by a federal grand jury.
My fellow New Yorkers, it is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies.
The Justice Department has just instructed federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York to drop the bribery case against New York Mayor Eric Adams.
Well, don't we have a tale for you guys today? Because apparently the Justice Department, under the Trump administration, as of right now, as of this moment, has decided that they are going to drop the charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams in relation to a corruption scheme that allegedly involved the nation of Turkey, that involved, of course, upgrading his flights. We also had a bunch of different text messages and whatnot that we went over in a previous video. And supposedly the word on the street, the word from the mainstream media, is this was due to the fact that Eric Adams signaled and basically promised to work with the Trump administration and work with ICE on mass deportation. So we got to talk about all this stuff. The plot twist right here, Eric Adams claiming with his attorney that these charges will never be brought again, and whether or not any or all of the rumors or the innuendos related to this are actually true. But before we do, I'll remind you, this weekend, February 15th and 16th, DebateCon 5 is happening. I will be debating on the 16th. The link to tickets is in the top of the description. It is in Newark, New Jersey, so if you're there in and around the area and you can make it out, I'd love to see you.
This came in a letter from the acting number 2 official at the Justice Department, Emil Bovee. The letter simply directed federal prosecutors here in New York, Lindsay, to drop the charges against Mayor Eric Adams, who was scheduled to go on trial this spring, charged with corrupting his office by taking bribes in the form of luxury travel benefits and the like.
So in a previous video on this channel, we went over the indictment and the charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and I think it's absolutely crucial for you to understand that as of right now, even though the charges are being dropped pending review from the new attorney that is going to be appointed to the Southern District of New York, that the case against him, at least according to the indictment, appeared to be rather strong. So there were a couple of different elements in here, like Eric Adams fast-tracking an approval of a Turkish embassy without proper fire inspections,
in exchange for official favors, the most prominent of which federal prosecutors said was interfering in trying to get the new Turkish consulate open before the FDNY was comfortable with the operating permits. But tonight, the number 2 official in the Justice Department has instructed federal prosecutors to drop the criminal charges against Mayor Adams. It's still not clear how the federal prosecutor's office is going to respond, because any decision like that would have to go before a judge.
Now, of course, he was obviously close to the nation of Turkey. He had been there more than a few times. He was receiving upgrades on flights and whatnot, according to the indictment. But the most crucial thing is that Eric Adams allegedly, according to said indictment, was using illegal campaign contributions funneled through Turkish nationals to American citizens as essentially straw donors in order to get a match of funds from the New York taxpayer in order to run his particular campaign. So if you guys are unaware, in the city of New York, we have some public financing and whatnot. And essentially, if you get small dollar donations, because you're pursuing those small dollar donations, you can get a certain amount of those donations matched by the city or by the state of New York in order to run your campaign. And allegedly, supposedly, this is a method to reduce corruption. Now, of course, this happens to be hilarious because apparently this was the exact mechanism that the Adams campaign ended up using in order to increase corruption. And to be clear, Eric Adams' campaign was not accused of taking a little bit of money, because essentially the way this program worked is that for every $1 that you received, you could get $8 of matching funds up to the amount of, again, $250. So obviously it became a little bit suspicious when all these different individual donors that had a connection to this Turkish corporation were donating $250 exactly in order to be able to get Eric Adams the matching funds, which again were 8 times that. That's the $2,000 number. And of course, this all added up to $10 million in public financing that was funneled to Eric Adams' campaign in order to maximize his chances of winning. Now, we have been clear on this channel repeatedly that Eric Adams is a Brooklyn borough president, or that's what he was before he was the mayor. The borough presidents are a nebulous position, and those are absolutely rife with corruption. Anybody can see that and I told you that way back when during the campaign for mayor when we were covering it on this channel. That being said, of course, according to the indictment, this corruption dates back in and around there, obviously. This was actually a topic during the mayoral debates that Andrew Yang brought up time and time again. But unfortunately, in that Democratic primary, even though Adams was a total goofball and he had all the stink of corruption allegations that long predated the Biden administration's DOJ indicting him, the fact of the matter is he was the best of the terrible candidates because every other one of those candidates was either a super hardcore socialist or somebody who wanted to defund the police or abolish the police or both. And unfortunately, Eric Adams was the best the Democrats could put forward. So I was happy, despite my corruption concerns, that he ended up winning their primary. Now, of course, if you win the Democratic primary, your chances of winning the mayoral election are extraordinarily high, not as high as other cities like the city of Chicago or other solid blue cities, because again, New York City had 5 consecutive Republican mayors or 5 consecutive Republican mayor election wins. But yeah, it's obviously a disaster, and Eric Adams decided to defend himself in the worst way humanly possible, which was, of course, to line up as many black people as he could and accuse the Department of Justice of evil white racism.
This is not a black thing. This is not a black thing. This is a you thing. This is a you thing, Eric Adams. This is not a black thing. Your policies are anti-black. You are disrespect to all black people in this city. The things that you have done are unconscionable. You hurt our schools. Our streets are dirty. Our children are harassed by the police. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. You can just be all you want, but the people are with us. And this is not a black thing. This is a justice thing.
Is there anything more New York than that mayoral press conference? You have the horns honking, traffic blazing, you have alarms going off, all the crazy background noise from the city of New York. And in addition to that, even though Eric Adams is lining himself up with all these different various black people, including the people dressed in the African garb, you have somebody shouting him down at saying that he's an embarrassment and all these other crazy things. So yeah, obviously Eric Adams was in a lot of trouble. And by the way, he's not the only one in his administration that was facing indictment. You also had the police commissioner and all these other different various appointees that were either involved in his scheme or different schemes, because this guy brought the corruption from the Brooklyn borough president to the mayor of New York City, and it's an absolute embarrassment. Now, with that being said, Eric Adams had maintained that he was being persecuted by the Biden administration for talking about the migrant issue.
They know where I come from. I have been fighting injustice my entire life. That fight has continued as your mayor. Despite our pleas, when the federal government did nothing as its broken immigration policies overloaded our shelter system with no relief, I put the people of New York before party and politics.
And I understand why he would go in this direction. Essentially, he's trying to peel off some support from the evil orange man's base, and for whatever reason, this has appeared to work for a lot of people, despite the fact that, again, Eric Adams' corruption is well documented and well noted. And in fact, Eric Adams has also been trying to get really close to Trump, praising him prior to the election, saying that you shouldn't call him a fascist. He went to Mar-a-Lago after Trump won the election.
And so we know that Mayor Adams did go visit Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago just a few weeks ago. Any known connection?
We don't know specifically what they discussed, and the mayor has been pretty coy about it, but I think there was no question he was pushing for a pardon or some kind of intervention by President Trump. Now, this comes way before the mayor even goes on trial. Was there any kind of quid pro quo? That we're not sure, but we know that Adams has been fairly quiet when it comes to issues like immigration or congestion pricing or other things where Trump may want to have some influence in New York where a different mayor may have outright stood in the way.
And of course, even though the inauguration day was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Eric Adams actually last minute canceled all of his events in order to see Trump get inaugurated. Now, of course, he said that the reason he did that was because he was invited last minute, but in reality, we all understand what is happening here. And it looks like, in my opinion, Eric Adams got his wish. He got the charges, maybe not dropped altogether, but at least dropped dropped until the election, as per this memo that, again, is a recommendation from the Department of Justice to suspend the case at least until after the election, when a new district attorney for the Southern District of New York can review it.
Yeah, a lot going on, a lot of breaking news. It seems every day there, Antoine. Well, today, it is the top federal prosecutor here in Manhattan resigning today rather than obey the order from the U.S. Justice Department to drop corruption charges against Mayor Adams. Now, we are talking about Danielle Sassoon, a Republican who was the interim U.S. attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Now, her abrupt resignation comes just days after the DOJ directed the office to drop the case against Adams, in which he is accused of accepting illegal campaign contributions and bribes of free or discounted travel from Turkish nationals who wanted to buy his influence. President Trump's Justice Department wanted the case dropped, saying the mayor needed to help carry out the president's immigration policies and that the case was politically motivated to hurt the mayor's chances of winning re-election in November.
Now, obviously, the local news here in the city of New York is very skeptical of the sudden dropping of charges against Mayor Eric Adams because the previous indictment made it seem like they had him dead to rights. Again, they had text messages, all these different other various things. Eric Adams actually ended up getting stopped in his limo in order for the police to seize his phone, the FBI. And one of the funniest things about this is that Eric Adams said that he actually changed his PIN code from a 4-digit PIN code to a 6-digit PIN code in order to make sure none of the staffers would delete information or evidence off the phone, because he was trying to be so secure and so transparent with the FBI. And then they asked him what the 6-digit PIN code was, and Eric Adams said he didn't remember it. So this guy was acting guilty, and the media very much took note of it. So obviously there's some skepticism on the charges suddenly being dropped, and people seem to have the perception that Eric Adams did cut a deal around the migrant issue, and that's why he is currently dealing with the charges being dropped as of right now. And the reason why I keep saying as of right now is because you actually have the attorney for Eric Adams making the claim that the charges are dropped completely, they'll never come back again, and you can hear that right here.
But it's another issue, immigration, that the mayor's attorney acknowledged today was of high interest to the Justice Department.
Obviously, if you indict the sitting mayor of New York City, who has lots of responsibilities for public safety, that has an impact on his ability to function.
But attorney Alex Spiro insists there was no quid pro quo and no legal threat from the Trump administration to the Adams administration.
There is no looming threat. This case is over. This case will never be brought back.
But this is not technically the case. In fact, in the memo that was sent to the Southern District of New York, they made it clear that this is not about immigration, which again may be a denial that you're trying to deny a little bit too much because it is about immigration. And they said that they're suspending it pending review of the new person put into that position. And also they want them to conduct their review after the election.
Sounding definitive, even though the Justice Department memo, while ordering prosecutors to dismiss the pending charges, also left it open, saying the matter shall be reviewed by the confirmed U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York following the November 2025 mayoral election.
So it seems like they're giving Eric Adams a chance to win the election. They're following that federal doctrine where they don't intervene in an ongoing election. But the fact of the matter is, if he's guilty of these charges, getting him to face the consequences of that, I believe, are more important than Eric Adams' somewhat promises in order to deal with immigration.
Some officials worry that threat makes Adams vulnerable when he meets tomorrow with Trump border czar Tom Homan,
sanctuary cities are sanctuary for criminals,
who has promised mass deportations.
I want to make sure we protect immigrants. We cannot have a system where we're opening our doors to ICE and federal law enforcement agencies. And so I will always push back on that.
When he arrived in Sunnyside this afternoon, I asked the mayor about what his political rivals have said, that he's now beholden to the president. How would you reassure New Yorkers that you have their interests at heart and not President Trump's interests?
Look at the record. Look at what I have done, how I have recovered the city.
Now, look, I know some people out there in my audience are going to be super pro-Trump no matter what, so even if he did do a quid pro quo with Mayor Eric Adams in order to get the illegal immigrants out, people are going to pretend that this is some kind of five-dimensional chess, but I will point out a couple of things about that particular argument. First and foremost, Governor Kathy Hochul, the Democratic governor of New York, has actually been pretty supportive of Mayor Eric Adams and the New York City governing structure, even though a bunch of different indictments and resignations have gone down. So the idea that it's just the Trump administration that is backing him is just not the case. Hochul is backing him. She's been backing him for a very long time and has not called for him to resign, and that has allowed him to maintain some level of legitimacy while in government, and he might owe favors to her as well if you're counting this as a favor from the Trump administration. And secondly, you gotta think about who you're getting in bed with. You gotta think about who you're partnering with, because Mayor Eric Adams may be the least bad person that was running in the 2021 Democratic primaries against all these other socialists and defund the police types, people running to the left of Bill de Blasio, but the man is an idiot through and through, and that is exemplified by the types of videos that he put out when he was a state senator. And if you know, you know, and if you don't know, then guess what? I'm gonna play a little bit of that for you.
What I would like to show here is to empower parents on how to search a room inside their home. It's imperative that you should know what's inside your household. And no one can state that you can't search a room in your own home. You write the Constitution. There are no First Amendment rights inside your household.
So in this particular video right here, Eric Adams is trying to teach parents how to search their home in order to find illegal guns and prevent gun violence from being carried out on the street. And I will remind you that Mayor Eric Adams is a state senator that swears an oath to the Constitution. He was also an NYPD officer. He would eventually go on to become the mayor of New York. And he's saying nobody could say that you can't search your own home under the Constitution because you write the Constitution in your own house, and therefore there are no First Amendment protections against search and seizure. Again, this man, who was a police officer, doesn't even realize that the Fourth Amendment protects against illegal search and seizure and has somehow bungled the First Amendment.
My message to you, you have an obligation to protect your home. The First Amendment does not apply to the right of parents to go through their homes to remove contraband or any other unsafe item.
And again, you might think the Trump administration, four-dimensional chess playing with this guy, trying to get him in order to get out the illegals, but this guy is an absolute idiot, and if you partner with him, you might be an idiot too.
So if you come to a room like this, you can start out, I always recommend to start out in a periodic fashion so you'll be used to going through the room to look at the various items in the room. You can look in a jewelry box. A jewelry box of this nature, maybe a simple jewelry box, but if you look through it closely, you don't know what your child may be hiding. For instance, a gun could be hidden, a small caliber weapon could be hidden inside a jewelry box. Look at the various colognes and perfumes and photos and pictures. You should always, when your child brings in his popular knapsack with many different locations, look through it to see what exactly is your child carrying in addition to a book. Something simple as a crack pipe, a used crack pipe. Could he have found it on the street? That's quite possible. But this is a discussion piece where you should start speaking with him to find out what is he doing with it. And the whole use of drugs. This invokes conversations. Look at picture frames and behind them, cameras. Try to determine what's taking place. Behind a picture frame, you can find bullets. What does that mean to find bullets? Does it mean your child is carrying a gun? No. Where there's smoke, there's possible fire.
And we're also going to make fun of the fact that there's this dramatic music playing as an undertone of all of this, and it's just an amazing thing. Again, this guy was elected mayor. This guy, unsurprisingly, was caught texting and whatnot with Turkish people and coordinating illegal contributions and messages that appear to be so obvious that he could be convicted tomorrow, and you shouldn't be surprised.
Where there's a bullet, there's possibly a gun. You should engage in the conversation and find out what are they doing with the item, and this empowers the parents. Look at all the items inside the room and feel around and see what's the possibility. Something simple as a baby doll. Could be just a baby doll, but also it could be a place where you can secrete or hide drugs.
Okay, so just a quick question for anybody. How old is this child that Eric Adams is suggesting you search the house for? There's a gun in the jewelry box. There's bullets behind the picture frame. There's a crack pipe in the knapsack, but also the child has a baby doll that could have a whole bunch of drugs in it, marijuana in this particular case, according to Mayor Eric Adams. Again, what a ridiculous doof. This guy, absolute buffoon in every possible way. Also, I will point out that Eric Eric Adams seemed to be very slick in his planting of the drugs in around that area, because he clearly had them on his person, but he ended up slipping them in that baby doll. And I think maybe, just maybe, Eric Adams was crooked even when he was a police officer.
Run your hands over the pillows and see if you feel anything that's unusual. Like a pillow like this with a button is a perfect invitation to hide something. And I felt something bumpy. I would reach in, see what it is. This one could be hidden inside a pillow, a gun. Maybe something that you'll think that can't be hidden there, but it can. And what happens not only when the person who is carrying this illegal gun is in possession of it, but also a child that comes into the room and plays on the bed, they find this gun. Let me tell you what a child would do. A child would take this gun, and because the trigger pull is so hard, they normally take the gun and they point it in their direction to pull down on it.
Okay, so we have a gun in the pillow right here because, of course, this kid is committing all of the crimes and whatnot. And here we have Eric Adams demonstrating how to shoot yourself in the face with a gun. I mean, guys, come on. This is the guy that is being crushed by the Biden administration, that is sticking up for the people against the illegals. Come on. This is not a good partner for the evil orange man to have. I don't care what he promises in terms of the NYPD. The fact of the matter is we should have allowed this case to come to fruition. And I'm hopeful that when the new Southern District of New York attorney ends up coming to power in this area and they review the case, and if the evidence is solid, they end up re-invoking these charges, because Mayor Eric Adams, make no mistake about it, is a total goofball. Now, it would be some five-dimensional chess if they drop the charges, Eric Adams ends up winning the primary, and then they re-indict him after that, and then the Republican takes the mayoralship. But maybe, just maybe, that's actually way too political to use the justice system in that manner. But I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below.
Just look and see what's inside your bookcases. It could be more than just books. Perfect place to hide cocaine or other illegal substance inside the room.
All right. I'm sorry. I got no more Eric Adams clips from this particular video, but I am glad that he's lived another life politically so that I could use this clip again, because it's so good. It's so entertaining. Again, the full video will be linked in the description. Now, as per usual, if you guys like this video, just show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Eric Adams getting the charges dropped as of right now. Till next time.